Hi everyone, welcome back to the series of videos on Ind AS, that is Ind AS with Accountsman. In the previous video, we were discussing Ind AS 37, that is provisions, contingent liabilities and contingent assets. But however, we could hardly discuss what is contingency and when will it become contingent liability, when will it become contingent asset, and how do we deal with contingent liability. Like we inculcated that provision, when to create provision and when to disclose it as contingent liability, and what do we do with contingent asset, when do we recognize it as asset and when do we disclose it, and when do we not disclose what is say contingent liabilities and assets, that is when it is remotely possible. That's what we did. And after that entire thing, I told you that in today's discussion we'll be basically trying to do that part wherein I'll tell you what is not provision, contingent liability and contingent assets. So what are the items which are not covered under this provision? Yeah, so we'll discuss exceptions from Ind AS 37. So we're going to discuss few items which are not covered under Ind AS 31. So these items relatively behave like what is say contingencies. You are not going to apply any part of the knowledge given under this standard for these items. So what are those items? These are basically items which are covered under separate standard, which are covered by a separate standard altogether. To name a few, income taxes. Yeah, whenever you would have to pay income tax in the future because the profit that you earn now, you might create provision that will not be covered by Ind AS 37. You do not give any relevance to Ind AS 37 in order to deal with income taxes because you have a separate standard, Ind AS 12. So when there is a specific standard, the general standard is overruled. You follow that. Similarly, with respect to employee benefits. Now, if there are any long-term employee benefits that you need to give out to your employee post employment or something, so there is a future outflow that's going to happen, you have to create provision for that. Now do you have to follow Ind AS 31 for such thing? No, because we already have a specific standard, Ind AS 19, which deals with employee benefits. So whenever you have to create provision for the employee benefits, you will not give any reference to Ind AS 37. You will read it in isolation all by itself there. And then even again with regard to business combinations, any provisions or contingencies if it is arising, again you would deal it as per Ind AS 103, and you would never be giving reference to Ind AS 37. Same again happens with insurance contracts, which is covered under Ind AS 104. See, all these are items which are specifically covered by a separate standard. When there is a separate standard covering it, you need not cover it under a generic standard like this. You get that? So specific rule definitely overrides the general rule. So what is it? Insurance contracts. That's basically provision for the unexpired risk if you would have to do Ind AS 104 if it is specifically covered. And we have one hectic chapter, one big a huge chunk of a chapter that we have throughout, that's called as financial instruments. So if a specific item is financial instrument, then that will be completely covered under Ind AS 109, and you'll never ever think of considering provisions, contingent assets or contingent liabilities for that part. So there is a specific standard called financial instruments, and regarding this you will never ever try to apply Ind AS 37. This is Ind AS 109. Now you might be wondering which part of it will come to this. Something like maybe if you have to pay premium on redemption of a security, then you should start providing for that premium right now, isn't it? When you start providing for it, it is in future expected outflow, you're providing it for it now. Shall we start applying Ind AS 37? No. So there we go by what is the effective rate of interest calculation, then cash flow, present valuation, fair value measurement. We do all that now under financial instruments. So that will get covered there, and you need not apply Ind AS 37 against any of the financial instruments, as there is a separate standard which full-fledgedly covers that. And again with respect to revenue recognition also. Regarding revenue recognition, we have Ind AS 115, which talks about it in depth. Again, one big standard again. Yeah, so there's a specific standard talking about revenue recognition. Now you don't tell, okay, virtual certainty is there, so I'll record it. Now that's only with respect to contingent assets. If it is a specific revenue item, let us discuss it with respect to 115 only. We will not bring it in Ind AS 37. And lastly, with respect to leases, previously Ind AS 17, now we have Ind AS 116. No, So this Ind AS 116 talks in detail about how to deal with financial lease, how to deal with operating lease, how to deal with that residual value, guaranteed, unguaranteed, change in terms, yeah, and then what to say, sale and lease back, and then lease back and then sale, operating lease and sale, sale and then operating lease, and then sale and then financial lease back. So in all these circumstances, how do we deal with this? Again, in these circumstances, you need not bring in Ind AS 37 at any point, because there is a specific standard regulating this, and that specific standard which is there will only take care. You get that? And last item is with respect to executory contracts. Yeah, again with regard to executory contracts, they are not covered under Ind AS 37. They are supposed to be dealt separately. Now the question that might be pondering around in your head is, what exactly do you mean by executory contract? It's a contract where every contract will have two parties. Now there are two parties. Assume that I and you are two parties into this contract. This contract will become an executory contract when neither have I nor have you done any of the things that is supposed to be done in the contract. Even I have not done any of the things that I am supposed to do as per the contract. Even you have not done anything that you are supposed to do as per the contract. In such a circumstance, we call it an executory contract. Or I and you, both of us, have partially, or what do you say, equally, like 10, I've done 10% of my things. I'm going to say I've given 10% of the services, you paid me for 10% of the services. Or I've done what do you say, some amount and you've done some amount. So either none of us have not initiated any transactions in relation to the contract, or both of us have partially or equally contributed to the contract. In such a case, it is called as executory contract. Executory contracts are specifically excluded because, see, I have not done anything. When you say, assume that I am supposed to give you service and you are supposed to pay me. I have not given you service, so you need not pay me. You cannot create provision for that, or you need not call it a contingent liability to you. Or I have done 10% of my contractual obligations. I have fulfilled 10% of my contractual obligations, and you pay 10% of the contractual payments. In that case, again, it's all settled. No, you need not create provision for the rest of the 90%. Obligation comes in only when I have given 100% of the I have fulfilled 100% of the contractual obligations and you have not paid money. That's when the provision concept comes. But it's a case where both of us have done equal parts to the contract, or I have not initiated any transactions and you not initiated any transactions. There's just contract on paper. In such a case, we will not be creating any provision for this particular contracts. You get that? So I'll discuss this little in detail. So I'll write this term for you. Executory contract. What is executory contract? It's a contract. Firstly, executory contract is a contract, okay, wherein first circumstance, both parties have not initiated fulfilling contractual obligations. I have not done anything that I am supposed to do as per the contract. You have not made any payment as per the contract. Done. Or both parties have partially or equally fulfilled contractual obligations. See, both the parties have partially or equally fulfilled the contractual obligations that they are supposed to do. In such a case, we call it executory contract. Executory contract, no, it can be like this. Can be, first one, it can be take and pay, or I can write it, yeah, or it can be a contract where it can be a put contract. Yeah. Now what exactly is a take and pay contract? Take and pay contract is where I have promised to give you certain goods, or I have promised to give you certain services, and you are obligated to take them. If you deny to take those products, or if you deny to take those services from me, you have to pay me some compensation. you have to pay some penalty because I was supposed to sell those goods to you, now you're not taking them. So I am a supplier, you are a buyer. If the buyer is obligated to take certain services or goods from the supplier, if he denies to take such things, then you would have to pay some penalty. That is take and pay contract. What is put contract? Put contract is where you have been obligated to supply minimum amount of goods to me. Like I've told you, have to supply minimum of 10,000 kgs of goods to me annually. If you don't supply minimum of 10,000 kgs, then again you are obligated to pay some penalty. You get that? So I'll write it here. What exactly do you mean by take and pay? Obligated to buy certain goods or accept services. Yeah, okay. If denied, attracts what? Penalty. What do you mean by put contract? Put contract is where you are obligated to pass on certain amount of goods to a party. Okay, obligated to supply minimum goods or services. If failed, attracts penalty. Now we understood the concept of executory contract. What I am trying to tell you with regard to executory contract in Ind AS 37 is executory contracts are excluded from Ind AS 37. Meaning, if there is an executory contract, are you going to apply Ind AS 37 to such contract? The answer is no. We need not apply Ind AS 37 to any part of an executory contract. However, there is an exception to exception. Meaning, if an executory contract is onerous in nature, if executory contract is onerous in nature, such onerous contract you would have to create provision. Now that calls the interesting part. What is it? If executory contract is onerous in nature, then what do? Then it is covered under Ind AS 37. Now tell me, the thumb rule is, are executory contracts covered under Ind AS 37? The answer is no. Executory contracts are out of the purview of contingent asset, contingent liability and provisions, Ind AS 37. However, if executory contracts are onerous in nature, then it will be covered under Ind AS 37. What do you mean by covered under Ind AS 37? Provision can be created. Now the question is, sir, you've been using this word onerous again and again. What exactly do you mean by onerous? That's the discussion that we'll do now. Come on, let us write the word onerous. Onerous. So what do we mean by this word onerous? When do we call an executory contract as onerous contract? When benefits from transaction when compared to cost to fulfill transaction or cost to execute transaction. You compare these two. Like, once that contract is complete, how much money will you receive? You compare that with the cost that you should incur to execute that contract. You compare this. When you do this comparison, if the benefit is less and the cost that you should incur is more, meaning there is a certain particular contract that you need to fulfill. By fulfilling that contract, you are under loss. Meaning, in order to fulfill that contract, the amount that you pay is more than what you get by completing that contract. Such a case, such an executory contract is called as onerous in nature. If an executory contract is onerous in nature, then though the underlying statement is that executory contracts are not within the purview of Ind AS 37, we can still go ahead and then create provision for this executory contract exclusively because it is onerous in nature. Now what do you mean by onerous in nature? That's what I've been telling. No, onerous in nature means that the benefit from that contract is less than the cost that is to be incurred to fulfill such contract. Okay, so what is it? Exceptions are income taxes, employee benefits, business combinations, insurance contracts, financial instruments, revenue recognition, leases are not covered under Ind AS 37 because there is a separate standard. Executory contracts are also not covered in Ind AS 37. Okay, except, or what do you say? I will not write except because exception to exception you might get confused. I'll write onerous in nature covered under Ind AS 37. So if it is onerous in nature, it is covered under Ind AS 37. If not, no. So we're done with this. And before I go any ahead, there is one more exception that I want to discuss, or one more thing that is basically not covered under provision. So this is usually examiner's favorite as well. Okay. Can we create provision for future operating losses? So in the future you are expecting some operating losses. Can we create provision for that now? It's an obligation, no? There is decrease in the outflow, decrease in the inflow, that is basically outflow. So can we create provision for the future operating losses is the question. This is examiner's favorite. Usually questions do come on this point. So what is the answer? Many of them might say, hey, it sounds correct, isn't it? Provision is valid. We need to create provision. No. Ind AS is very clear on this point, unlike AS. So Ind AS specifically says that whenever you expect future operating losses, that is basically because there are certain assets which are impaired and you are not recording them. You might have been recording those assets at a value higher than their recoverable amount. That is, carrying amount is exceeding the recoverable amount. That is the case what we call as impairment. I hope you people are aware of this. Just before doing this particular standard, we have done impairment. You can go back and then watch that amazing standard. Yeah. So whenever there is a future expected operating losses, we cannot create provision for the same. We'd have to test the assets for impairment. You get this? So that's what I'm trying to tell. So future operating losses expected. Then what do we do? Yeah, what is it? Provision. Should we create provision? The answer is no, you should not create provision. So what should you be doing? You should be test assets for impairment. You need to identify the cash generating unit and then basically test the assets for impairment. So I'm not going to talk much about impairment because just before starting this standard we've done it in detail. There are 4 parts. I want you to go back and then watch it so that you'll understand it in detail as to how do we test for impairment and how do we treat that impairment. So whenever there is an expected future loss, we don't create provision for the same. We test the assets for impairment and then bring down the value of the asset such that there would be future operating losses will be adjusted from now. You get that? So this is with regard to the exceptions for Ind AS 37. Yeah, the easy part, the interesting part is basically with regard to executory contracts. When they are onerous, we don't do it. And when we talk about benefits from that particular transaction, we're basically referring to economic benefits. So I forgot to write that word. I'll add. Yeah, and when I say cost to fulfill, this is unavoidable. It is not like you talk to the dealer and then say, sorry, it's okay, leave it. No. It's unavoidable cost to fulfill that particular transaction. If it exceeds the economic benefit, then it is called as onerous. Then we can create provision. And again, with respect to operating losses, we don't usually, create provision. All we would have to do is test the assets for impairment. And that's with respect to this part in Ind AS 37 session. So we have little more remaining in Ind AS 37, that is how to determine the amount of provision, what is the basis, and why do we basically create provision, and then what is the purpose of creating the provision, like how will it be treated, when will it be adjusted against the expense or any expense, can we restate the provision, can we increase it, can we decrease it, what are the disclosure requirements with regard to the provision. And there are a couple of special things that is supposed to be known with regard to Ind AS 37, that is how do we treat restructuring, yeah, if it is any there. or how do we basically treat the levies if there is any from the government, what is basically a levy. So those are certain parts which are yet to be discussed with regard to our Ind AS 37. If I try to put it into this, it will become too long as such a video, the present one. So let us end this present video at this stage, and when we start with the next video on Ind AS 37, therein we'll discuss it in detail as to how do we determine the amount of provision, how do we determine the changes in the provision, how do we treat them, and what is restructuring expenses, and what is levies, and what is the disclosure requirements with regard to Ind AS 37. So see you all in the next video. Till then, stay in the game.